Yeah, it all happened here. It's a hard memory. All the good times that she had here are all covered up by tragedy.
Ma'am? Did you stab me in my children? What? Did you stab me in my children? Who did? Hang on. Somebody keep me alone. Sleeping, me and my little boys are sleeping downstairs.
At that particular time, my boys had been murdered. I was being accused of their murders. I was being held in jail. Actually, for the first 3 days, they had kept me in a cell where I was completely nude. It was it was a horror.
I knew that Devin was dead from the minute I got downstairs. I don't think Devin lived a couple minutes. I mean, I was down the steps too fast. So he pretty much died instantly. Damon, died a little bit later.
Well, when the verdict came back, and of course, they had found me guilty, I just was in disbelief, overwhelming feeling of disbelief. I could not believe that they had found me guilty. The shock.
And about 2:30, the first thing that I remember is hearing a real light glass break, just almost like a wine glass or something real light. And I don't remember the amount of time that it took for me to hear the first scream. But the first thing that I heard was Darlie screaming, "Devin, Devin, 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 Devin." I mean, she was just going over and over and over again. And when I get over to Devin, he's laying on the floor face up, and he has these huge 2 gashes in the top of his chest. And I see the coffee table bent over. He has no life in his face. And I'm hearing what's happened, and she's screaming into the phone, "Oh my God, my babies have been killed, get here, I need an ambulance, and I'm just hearing this hysterical, going on, this hysteria just happening, and I'm sitting here thinking, oh my God, I've got to get air into this baby's body. And I go down to blow into his mouth to give him CPR, cocked his head back, and as soon as I did, blood just spewed out of his chest.
Darlie Routier told police an unknown intruder committed the crime, yet within 20 minutes of arriving at the scene, police already considered her to be a suspect. Darlie was later arrested and charged with capital murder. The prosecution claimed a minuscule piece of fiber from a screen door found on a kitchen knife in the house supports their theory that the killer must have been someone from inside the house. Prosecutors also believed Darlie's injuries were self-inflicted and suggested that she was a selfish, cold-blooded woman who stabbed her sons because she could no longer satisfy her expensive lifestyle. The district attorney, Mr. Greg Davis, refused to be interviewed for this program. The media hype that followed soon portrayed Darlie Routier as a materialistic social climber who didn't care for anyone but herself. Based upon the evidence presented by the state, after 7 hours of deliberation on February 1st, 1997, the jury found Darlie guilty of murder and sentenced her to die by lethal injection. Darlie Routier currently sits on death row, maintaining her innocence and waiting for a miracle.
Darlene is not a violent person. She did not have any mental problems. She loved her children. She had just finished making a large dinner for them, and she had appointments for the dentist and pictures, appointments for Drake. Darlene wouldn't hurt anybody, let alone her children. She's not violent.
I've known Darlie for about 9 years now, and she's just been a wonderful friend. She's a wonderful mother. We did things with our kids together, went over to each other's homes, went out to eat.
Devin and Damon were so full of life. So they touched everybody everywhere they went. They were so special. They always cared about other little children. I remember one time that we had taken them to the Rowlett Needy Children's Home. And we had taken them through and explained to them how other little children didn't have, toys or food or a safe, warm home. And when we came back to the house, they had started putting all their toys and stuff in a bag. And I was like, what are you guys doing? And they wanted to take those toys for the other little children. They were just, Devin was always full of laughter, always making everybody laugh, always wanting to be silly. Damon was more quiet, more reserved, was a little shy.
Okay, we'll see you in the morning. Did you want to get rid of all that, Dana? Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, but I'll wait.
There was a lot of things that I was having to struggle with. I was very angry at God. I was very, my faith was shaken. I couldn't understand why a God that was supposed to be so loving and so compassionate could allow something so horrible to happen when I hadn't done anything. God didn't do this to me. He may have allowed it, but man did this to me. But that no matter what, God's going to carry me through. And that's what He's done. He's carried me through this fire.
They were just wonderful little boys that loved anything that was new and popular. Like all little boys, they loved Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles. They loved packages under the Christmas tree. And when you think about Damon taking a little slinky for me and wrapping it up, and it was all messy. I'd just give anything to have that kind of Christmas again.
It's so hard because you want to convey, you want people to feel what you've gone through, and you try to get the right words. But anything that I could say, any words that I could say would not even begin to touch the surface of how horrible it is every day. But yet, I have to continue to get through every day. I have to make myself get up. I have to make myself say, okay, today is another day. I'm going to try to get through this day. Not just for me, but for Devin and Damon too. It's very hard because you don't have any contact in here. You're not allowed to touch, hug, hold any type of contact with your family whatsoever. It's been almost 4 years since I've held my little boy.
Baby Jack, I'm gonna get you.
What I pray for is complete exoneration, that hopefully the truth will come out, that my innocence will be shown, that people will know that I didn't murder Devin and Damon, that I didn't attack myself. Of course, the ultimate prayer would be is to have Devin and Damon back, but I know that that's not going to happen. So somehow I have to make them give us justice because we haven't gotten that.
I first heard about the Darlie Routier case in a professional setting. I work for a small magazine called Justice Denied, and we deal with inmates who claim that they were wrongly convicted. We dig a little bit deeper into it, we profile their stories, and that's where I first learned about it. When I first read about the case, it was troubling to me. And as it progressed, as I got more and more involved in the information and the evidence, it is unbelievable to me the magnitude of what has happened to this woman. And the wrongful conviction is just off the charts from everything that I have seen in my line of work.
The motives that the prosecution suggested to the jury was that my client viewed her children as being in the way of her desired lifestyle, and thus she decided to get rid of them so that she could live unburdened by children. Of course, that theory overlooks the fact that she's the kids' school room mother. Her house was the house in the neighborhood that most neighborhoods have, where all the kids gathered because they felt comfortable and welcome, and there was a mother around to, feed them milk and cookies and let them play. There was also a 10-month-old baby, and in my experience, 10-month-olds take a lot more time, trouble, and effort than a 5- and a 6-year-old who was unharmed. And so the state's theory that she wanted to get rid of her children because they were in her way has many holes in it.
Oh no, Damon.
The intruder theory is not just a theory, it's the only scenario that makes sense under the evidence. The idea that Darlie killed her children as well as inflicted all these horrendous injuries to herself, and at the same time planted a bloody sock down the alley and cut her own the screen to the garage and did all these things that in a timeline that was impossible, that is in fact a theory. The intruder coming in and causing all these injuries and deaths and destruction is what the facts support.
I do not believe that the physical evidence found at the crime scene supports the conclusions of the state or the jury. I think that many of the witnesses called by the state misinterpreted the crime scene evidence, interpreted it in their own way, rather than let the jury draw the facts from the evidence. Several such issues as they didn't collect bloody towels. Darlie's statement originally says, I took bloody towels from the sink to help the boys. Those towels were never collected, so we do not know whether or not there was DNA on those towels to corroborate Darlie's story. Had those towels been collected by the police department, had they been analyzed for DNA, we might find that the issue that she cut her throat at the sink and then tried to clean up the mess to disguise it is a false conclusion by the investigators.
It was the state's theory that my client stabbed the boys first, then staged the crime scene, including cutting herself, and all during that time period also took this bloody sock down the alley. When that is looked at objectively, that scenario, it was impossible for my client to have done all those things in the time that was before the paramedics arrived.
The order of assault, which boy was assaulted first, whether or not Darlie was assaulted last. I believe Darlie was assaulted last from a variety of different evidence. There's DNA evidence to indicate that on one of the stains, on Darlie's deal, both boys' blood is on that stain. That would mean it had to come from a source of a knife, which meant that the boys were stabbed prior to that. The DA's explanation and their crime scene man's explanation is that 2 spots of blood flew through the air and coterminously hit on exactly the same place on a t-shirt 1 millimeter wide. And therefore we have combined DNA of both boys. And that's to me is an absurd conclusion.
I believe with all my heart that Darlie Routier is innocent. There's not a doubt in my mind.
This is a partial picture of what Darlie looked like at the hospital.
Well, after I saw the pictures that made me know that she wasn't guilty, all the ones that we didn't see during the trial, after I saw those pictures, then that just made me feel more so that she's not guilty, that she did not do it to herself, she did not cut herself, and that she put up a heck of a fight to protect her own self.
Here's another picture showing the bruising on her arms that supposedly she inflicted on herself, at least according to the prosecution. This neck wound is in clear view there. You need to understand, she's right-handed, and even the state admits that this was a cut made with a left-hand motion. It came within 1 centimeter of her carotid artery, which would have caused her death in a matter of minutes. This is what she looked like the first day at the hospital. That is a picture of a victim, without any doubt.
The reason for coming forward is after a few months of thinking about it and what I should have done and what I didn't do is follow my heart. And back when I was growing up, well, my parents always told me if I did something that's not right, well, make it right.
I don't think things will ever be the same the way that they were. First of all, Devin and Damon are gone. Devin and Damon were my life. My boys were my life. They were my source of joy and happiness. They are gone forever. How am I supposed to ever remain the same? How am I supposed to continue on when I see their friends growing up, getting bigger, celebrating birthday parties? Absolutely not. They've taken away my naiveness. They have taken away my security. They've taken away so much. They've stripped me. Now, can I make something positive out of that? Yes, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to make the most out of it that I can, because that's what Devin and Damon would want me to do.
Mr. Davis, who prosecuted the case, in my opinion, from other cases, similar type cases that I've seen, was overzealous and out of control and went beyond his duty as a representative of the state. This became a personal issue. It almost became a vendetta. Most prosecutors have the common courtesy in a death penalty situation. When they get their conviction and they get their death sentence and the media is surrounding them, asking them how they feel at that moment, a good prosecutor always says something like, this is a sad day for everyone. There are no winners in this case. Mr. Davis has chosen another avenue, and that is his response to it will be that Darlie Routier richly deserves to die for this crime. Personally, I have a problem with that.
I've learned about a system that I once believed in, that I once thought was about truth, was about justice. And I found that the system is not what I thought it was. That just because somebody wears a badge, or just because they're wearing a uniform, doesn't mean that that person is not acceptable to make mistakes. It doesn't mean that they're not infallible. For me, that's what I believed before this happened. I believed that when you walked into a courtroom, if you were innocent, you would be found innocent. If you're guilty, you'll be found guilty. It's not the truth all the time. It's not the way it works.
What frightens me the most is that they'll kill Darlie knowing their mistakes, that they would rather see Darlie die than admit that they're wrong. I'm seeing Texas execute people so fast that it's scary.
When I was convicted, I still believed in the death penalty very strongly. Of course, I was dealing with a lot of emotions, and I had never really given, the death penalty much thought. I had never given prison much thought, or the court system. I didn't think people in prison could change. I had never really known anybody in prison, so I didn't know anything any differently. And it just made me realize that, people in prison can change, that they're not expendable. Their lives are of worth value. If I had 5 minutes with the person or persons who did this to myself and my boys, the first thing that I would want to know is why. I don't understand. How could somebody do something like this? What purpose? I've had a lot of people ask me, as a mother, wouldn't you want this person executed? Wouldn't, you have to feel that way. And as a mother, yes, of course, there's a part of me that feels that way. But as a woman that has been through this, that has learned about forgiveness, that has learned about how the system works, that there are innocent lives in here, I think people have this idea that the death penalty is going to bring a sense of peace, a sense of healing. And what I've learned as a victim is that that peace, that healing, it all has to come from inside you. I mean, personally, I couldn't sit and watch another human being gasp his last breath, electrocuted, whatever the method is, and walk out of there and feel a sense of goodness about that, of peace about that. To me, it would just be another, they can't give me Devin and Damon back.
Yeah, yeah, looks like we made it. Look how far we've come, my baby. I'm glad we didn't listen. Look at what we would be missing. They said, I bet they'll never make it. But just look at us go and home. We're still together, still going strong. Still the one, you're still the